Hi there, I'm the BigCraigO and thank you for clicking on this video. So as the title suggests, currently there's a bunch of creatives that are trying to raise awareness for the pollution that's going on in our water sources and oceans. As of the 29th of October, there'll be a bunch of new YouTube videos going up across all different platforms, but YouTube as well, under the banner of TeamSeas. I'm just trying to build a bit of awareness before that kicks off, trying my hardest to sort of encourage other creatives and people to actually support their favorite streamers as they try and raise that awareness to clean up our oceans. So TeamSeas is actually trying to raise, or will raise, $30 million to remove 30 million pounds of rubbish from the ocean. It's pretty good. It's a pretty big deal. So this has been headed up by a number of massive YouTubers, including Mr. Beast, which is how I became aware of it, and why I decided to jump on board and try and do my little bit. So over the coming weeks and months, I'll actually be running a lot of different events on stream and on my channel to try and encourage my followers and subscribers to also support this channel. If you have a YouTuber that you follow that you're keen to get them involved, make them aware, ask them what they're doing for the TeamSeas initiative. If they're not, they could probably go and check it out. If they are, support them. Let them know that it's important to you too. I'm just gonna put this on while we're talking, because obviously watching a title screen's a bit boring. But this game's a fairly good example of why it's important that we look after our oceans. I'm very, very fortunate, and I live in a beautiful place called Cairns in far north Queensland, and right on our doorstep, so just off the coast, we have the Great Barrier Reef, one of the world's most amazing things. If you've never got the opportunity to check out the Great Barrier Reef, I'd suggest that you do make that effort. As soon as you're able to travel to Australia, you should come and see it. If you can't travel for whatever reasons, it's too far for you, I'd suggest that you check it out online. Go and watch some videos, go and search up the Great Barrier Reef, and you'll see why it's worth saving. One of the biggest things to be mindful of is all of those plastics that we currently use. Those one-use plastics are devastating a lot of the animals that live in the ocean. And the reason that they're doing that is because if you've ever had a plastic toy or something like that that sat in your backyard or front yard, you know how they become really brittle? They start to break apart. Imagine living in the ocean where not only are you constantly, always in the sunlight being blasted by it, but it magnifies that heat when you're in the water, the reflections, etc., and makes the plastics brittle. Plus it's also getting rolled in the waves, and as it gets rolled, it breaks down into small pieces, and smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. Eventually it's really tiny, and you'll see in the cover image for this, you'll see a picture of a finger with some little small pieces of plastic, blue plastic on it. It gets even smaller than that. But as a fish swims along, it'll see these reflections, and fish being fish, they attack reflections for food, and they ingest some of that plastic. So that's not good for them. The other thing is those microplastics get broken down and broken down and broken down to the point where they're actually so small that they'll pass through the cell walls. And if you do some research on it, you'll actually see how devastating plastics are in our food supply, in our water, in what we breathe. We're actually breathing in microplastics that are so tiny they can pass through, as I said, the cell walls as you touch plastic. That can't be good for you, yeah? And so if you have a choice to not use one-use plastics, please make that choice. Please make the sensible one of not causing more pollution. As I've said a few times in a few of these videos now, you know, I've done a few cleanups around my local area through my workplace, and some of the young people that I work with have been very passionate about cleaning up their environment and trying to keep it pristine for future generations, which I respect. And one of the things that's quite saddening is to see the amount of waste that gets just thrown aside and not even thought about how it can be disposed of sensibly. Things like fishing line, things like just those you know, drink cups and plastic bottles and things like that. So just try your best, think about what you're doing, and remember that you know, it's not just you that you're impacting, it's many other generations and people, and some people that actually don't have the luxury of having other options. Yeah, thanks Chase. Yeah, stop pollution, 100%. Look, I think that if you have a choice to be able to select you know, reusable items like glass and things like that, go for it, do those. Take paper bags, take things to your shops when you go and do your grocery shopping, rather than using those plastic bags to put your broccoli and your tomatoes and things like that in. Most shops nowadays will have a non-disposable option. If they don't, I know here in Australia and in New Zealand and the UK and the US, where I've travelled to, they generally will have paper bags that you can use for things like mushrooms, etc. Just use them. They're not perfect for the environment, but they're not as bad as plastics are. And just be mindful of that. You know, the sorts of disposable containers that a lot of products come in that you get to use once and then throw in the bin. They're just, it's such the volume of them is such a high levels. It's really hard for us as a planet to recycle these and use them. And you know, it's got to the point now where in places like China and others, they've refused to take plastics to recycle because they just don't have a way of being able to recycle the volume. So you've got hundreds and thousands of tons of plastic that are now sitting dumped in places all over the world, where most consumers think, oh, I'm recycling it, but then it gets basically put into containers and sent to another country, and they basically unload it and it just gets dumped in villages, etc. So I've seen documentaries and information about this where, you know, whole villages have just been completely and utterly inundated with plastic that they can't do anything with. But it's because, you know, it needs to be taken away from, for example, Australia, where we want to recycle it. So it gets shipped to another country where we think it's being recycled, but actually in reality it's just being dumped, because those countries don't have the same level of restrictions that we have about people dumping rubbish. So that's pretty scary when you think about it that way, and I would definitely suggest looking into how your recycled plastics are being treated, where they're being sent, because in reality, even the designer of plastics said that if there was one thing that he could do in life would be to not invent plastics, because he doesn't feel that they're actually the thing that they weren't used in the way that he hoped that they would be. And obviously as they became and they got adopted more and more by the petrochemical companies that have that as a byproduct, it's a great way for them to be able to spread out. They've got fuel, petrol or gas if you're in the US, that comes from oil, and plastics is a byproduct. They're long chain polymers, and you know, it's a great way of using a byproduct to sell a byproduct to make more profit. And I have no issues with people making profit, and if we just remove plastics from existence today, there'd be huge amounts of horrible impacts on our society and the globe, but we need to be sensible in the way that we personally choose to use them to try and reduce, because as I just said, companies want to make profit, and if you choose to not use their products because they're not being sensible about how they're producing the packaging, they're going to make better choices, yeah? Better choices that are more sustainable for us, and so that some of these crazy grey reef sharks, etc., don't end up ingesting plastic. And we've all seen the images of turtles with plastic straws in their nose and stuff like that, which was horrible. And you think about how much of an impact globally has happened since those images started to be spread, where a lot of places around the world now don't have plastic straws. They have metal straws, or they have paper straws. And the good thing about paper straws is when they get wet, they break down into paper, and it is biodegradable. So just be mindful of that, guys. I'm not trying to preach at you. Go and check it out, make informed choices, look for solutions to your own environmental issues that surround where you live. I live in a place similar to this that's on the screen here, and I don't want my kids to miss out on seeing the reef. I don't want my kids to not be able to go diving, or you know, go and sit in a glass bottom boat and watch these beautiful triggerfish, coral shroud as the picture's saying. You know, that's important to me, and something that I grew up enjoying, and hope will be around for many generations to come. So do what you can. As I said before, guys, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time is when I stream. Feel free to come and have a chat with me. I'm really passionate about, obviously, a lot of different things, but one of the things I'm really focusing on is just trying to build awareness for how making better choices, making informed choices about how you use your packaging and things like that can have a positive impact on your environment. And in chat there, Jace has just said stop and think just for a moment, and I couldn't agree more with you, Jace. Thank you very much. All right, guys, whatever you got planned for today, enjoy yourself, have a great one, and as I always say, look forward to seeing you on the battlefield.